So everyone, this is our first review ever, and we only have one thing we gotta say right off the bat. Settle it and smash! Alright guys, we're here to review Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 3DS. I'm Chris.
And I'm Zack.
Best kid ever. Stephen Leote's over writing in the corner, and or jerking off, we're not sure. If you guys can hear that, that's what he's doing. Alright, so we're going to talk about Super Smash Bros. For you guys. And first off, we feel that this is common practice. We're going to start off with graphics quality. Graphics are pretty well handled.
As a little side note here, he's using the 2DS to play with Smash Brothers, and I've got the 3DS XL. So yeah, he's got the smaller screen, I've got that bigger one, so we both have maybe a little bit different views on it, but otherwise it should be alright, all the same.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, in general with the graphics, when you're considering just the quality of the graphics, they're well handled, but we'll get into playability a little bit later, considering that it becomes hard to appreciate the graphics.
Yeah, but otherwise, I mean, it's a very colorful game. It pretty much does fit the overall theme of just a mix and match of all these different Nintendo characters. They each have their own different style.
Yeah, and of course, that's one thing that when I was first approaching the game, way back when the first Super Smash Bros. Came out, even then it was a concern to me that there are so many different games, different aesthetics going together into one game, and in the end, even with the newest iteration, it's been the same every time. It's really chaotic, but almost always in a good way.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's that feel of that, everything is together, but yet they have their own little things going on, basically. I mean, you can definitely tell the differences in like the more realistic and Link and Zelda, Ganondorf, and all that, and then you have the more cartoony ones like Ness or Pikachu or any of the Pokemon, really.
Yeah, and of course that also leads us into thinking about how audio design works with a game like this, where you have so many different universes coming together. Of course, you've got this huge toy box and this catalog of different soundtracks from Nintendo's history going into it. And
to me, it was very well handled. You definitely have your different original songs and sounds from their games. You also have different remixes from the past Smash Brothers games, as well as new remixes of their own that give it a new fresher feel to it.
Absolutely. And, of course, I thought that the audio in of itself was excellently designed. When you're considering a handheld, you can only do so much, but even with the 2DS, which only really has one speaker on it, the sound is full. If the volume's turned up, it actually has almost a surround sound feel, even from that one small speaker.
Oh, yes. And one of my most favorite features from that has got to be from the sound library, where you're actually able to listen to the song, all the background songs from the stages, and you can actually put them, program your favorite ones in there, and play it with the game closed, and listen to it like an iPod. I absolutely love that, and just love to listen to it when I'm either at work or driving around or something like that.
Yeah, and while I'll admit, it's much easier to do with the 3DS, where you can fold it and then have your headphone plugged in, and you can have it in your pocket. Even with the 2DS, it's a relatively pleasurable experience. I can actually plug it into my soundbar at home.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, you have the aesthetic of the audio, blending with the video, of course, and the setting itself. I think it's really fun.
Oh, definitely. I mean, all this music and sounds fit. They just fit so well with it. Like the Kirby stage you're basically playing the Game Boy version of Kirby, of the first Kirby game, and it has the original music to it. And it was very nostalgic to me. I absolutely loved it because that was my first Game Boy game. Was Kirby's Dream Land.
And even going back with some of the Game & Watch stages, stuff like that, where you have this music that's really obscure, even for Nintendo's library for its history, and it's just really well handled and even remixed and brought to the modern. Which brings us a bit to the more important points for our purpose in reviewing.
Oh, yeah.
Our more important points are when we start getting into the nitty-gritty of the game, I suppose. Starting, of course, with what everyone else is concerned with, fun. Is the game fun? Absolutely.
Definitely.
I've never had more fun with a handheld game of this generation. It's controlled chaos is the best way to describe it.
That is the best way to describe it, especially since, basically everyone loves Nintendo. And so seeing all these different Nintendo characters just beat the crap out of each other, there's no better feeling.
Yeah, there's no more fun than watching Robin lightning bolt Mr. Game & Watch into oblivion.
Or just beat the crap out of Mario and Pikachu with just because,
Ganondorf's power punch.
and just Captain Falcon in general, too. Falcon! Punch!
Yep. Great move, and of course seeing it copied in Ganondorf way back in Super Smash Bros. Brawl was almost a shock initially, especially when you realize Ganon was better at it.
Yeah, and Melee.
Oh yeah, Melee was when it started.
Yeah.
Anyway, now we're going to get into something where Zack's going to have a lot more to say than me, obviously, when we're talking about the mechanics of the game.
Oh yeah, definitely. Mechanics, the mechanics were handled very well. Because competitively, when you looked at original Smash Brothers, it's very technical. You got stuff like the priority in some moves and which character is better against another one. The character-wise, they're pretty balanced. But you probably are going to go more for the faster people competitively. One change I did like is with grabbing ledges, and now that you can trump them, I think it was the person with the higher damage can trump and push the other person off the ledge. So it's not a ledge game anymore with a competitive scene. So I would hope to see a lot more action going on with that. Otherwise, it was good. Only real problem I have is balance issues with some of the custom parts, but you can easily turn that off and enjoy just vanilla Smash Brothers.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the core game, in terms of the mechanics that come to be present to the player with the control schemes and everything, it very much follows the age-old acronym, Keep It Simple, Stupid, and it does a very good job at doing that.
Yeah.
Our next major issue, and this is similar to mechanics, is when you start getting into the playability of the game. Things that may affect a person's experience in that they may or may not be able to effectively enter the game because of controls, because of, menu design, the camera angles, anything like that falls under playability. And, of course, talking about camera angles and menus, my biggest gripe with the game was absolutely the menu design.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. There are a lot of things buried in the design. You could have made it a little better, but when you're looking at it aesthetically, you see. The more important stuff is bigger on the screen. Like, definitely Smash takes up like a good chunk of the screen. Smash Run a little smaller. So that part I can see, but trying to navigate the menu is a little harder.
For instance, Trophy Rush is one of the more important concepts for the game for some of the achievements you might be trying to hunt down, and it's buried in 4 or 5 layers of submenus. That's a problem, but not a huge one. If you're just going to the game to have fun, the main modes you're going to be playing are stuff like Classic, All-Star, and Smash, obviously.
Yeah.
So those are right up front, pretty easy to get to, easy to access.
Another problem I have is it was the controls a little bit. Mostly because the response to them, definitely trying to get into some Smash, it kind of wouldn't register it a little bit, or I'm facing the wrong direction a lot of the time. But otherwise, the controls are pretty tight.
Yeah. The controls went well, for the most part. Some of it's a little over-specific, like Zack was saying. But the biggest problem in gameplay, well beyond the menus, well beyond sometimes sticky controls, is definitely the camera. For a handheld game where you can only have one player per screen to be zoomed out that far, a good 60% of the time is an issue, because it makes it hard to tell where you are.
Yeah, I've lost my character a lot of times, and it has cost me games because of it. But even though I do have the XL bigger screen, I have lost my character a few times.
Yes, again, I don't like having this 2DS, which is relatively heavy and unwieldy for a handheld, this far from my face, trying to figure out where I am.
Yeah.
But it's an acceptable issue, if nothing else.
Yeah.
The last thing, this is where you would hear more from me in another review, but you're not in this one, is writing. Honestly, when you're talking about Shigeru Miyamoto, when you're talking about Nintendo in general, writing is...
This is more Sakurai.
Yeah, even with Sakurai in this one. Writing is background. It's very much subtle, has to do with the universe itself. You kind of pick up bits and pieces of it with the characters. But, again, you're talking about a toy box. So for writing, it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, most of the story, if you can put a story in it, I felt most of it, you could tell in Smash Run, especially with some of the background props in it. I noticed like bits and pieces from the past Subspace and Mystery in it. So I mean, there's a hint of story in it.
And of course the concepts of the Master Hand and Crazy Hand, which have been around from the beginning of this series, the idea that, either the toys are rebelling against the hands controlling them, or whatever angle you want to take on that, that's your call, but there's something going on. Overall, Zack?
But we absolutely love the game. It's one of my favorite Nintendo games to play. I remember back on Super Smash Bros. Melee, I would just play that thing hours on end. I've definitely logged hundreds of hours in that game.
Yeah, and even with the new one, within the first week or so of it being out, I logged a good 20 hours into the game. Yeah. It's just, even with other work that I've been doing, if I have a few minutes, I sit down and play, because it is really fun, it's good stress relief, everything is well designed.
Yeah, and I play it in all my downtime at work, and it's just a great escape for me.
Yeah. And, other than a few qualms about the camera issues and menu layout.
And controls.
Controls. I mean, small things, in the end, that really do not affect the game too much unless you are really, really into that. If you have really fat fingers for whatever reason, I mean, like, fatter than ours. I mean, this guy works with tires. I'm an editor, so I'm at a keyboard almost all day, so I need really precise work. But apart from that, other than those minor issues, the game's really fun to play.
Oh, yeah.
And you can look past most of its issues really easily.
Oh, yeah.
With that in mind, our final score has to be brought down by the playability issues.
Oh, definitely.
As a result, our final score is
an 8.5 out of 10.
And, of course, we recommend this game to anyone who has a 3DS or 2DS.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's a must-have.
Yes. And, of course, great for multiplayer, so
oh, yeah.
That in and of itself, multiplayer isn't necessarily the biggest focus with Nintendo, so having a game that's so heavily focused on multiplayer is a nice change of pace.
And I do want to make a note for, this will probably go into playability. For the online features, I do have a little bit of a problem with it. Playing in any of the modes, lag is very persistent in it.
And in a game that runs as fast-paced.
Yeah, which I do not exactly recommend online mode for a handheld. You definitely want to go more for a local multiplayer. That handles a whole lot better.
Absolutely. Now, of course, as always, best regards, I'm Chris.
And I'm Zach.
Have a good evening.